So, we're going to do something a bit different this week because, in case you're unaware, I'm from Brisbane, Australia, and for the last few days we have been battening down the hatches because we have a big old tropical cyclone called Alfred barreling its way towards us. So, I thought, what better way to prepare for the arrival of big old splashy Alfred than with some of my favourite horror films that involve what we call in Australia big fuck off storms? Number one, right off the bat, as if I'm not going to have it in here, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park has one of the greatest horror movie storms of all time, um, and it's perfectly used. It's such a core plot point. Because what's scarier than 200 kilometer an hour? That's about 124 miles in freedom units. Storms, winds. Then my friend the fucking T-Rex or the Velociraptor or my personal favorite dinosaur, the Dilophosaurus. Yes, I know they didn't look like that in real life, but let me have this dream. Um, there is so much mud, blood, and flares in this movie. It's got great performances from Samuel L. Jackson, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum. It's just a phenomenal film, and it's also quite friendly for young teens and stuff, tweens even. It's so good. It's truly one of the greatest horrors of all time. I implore you, if you're looking for a storm horror movie, Jurassic Park. It's pretty hard to go wrong with Jurassic Park. It's one of the greatest horrors of all time for me. Um, it's currently on Prime and Binge in Australia. Get around it. So I'm going to keep up with the theme of reptilian rage, and I am going to cast a vote for the 2019 movie Crawl. This was apparently Quentin Tarantino's favorite film of that year. And if you know anything about QT, you know that he absolutely loves horror. He watches so much horror, so that's a big call from him. This movie's about a competitive swimmer named Haley who heads into the midst of a Category 5 hurricane. Do not do that. Here's your Spooky Night safety warning. Don't do that. But she does it to check on her dear old dad in Florida. Unfortunately, it seems that he is stuck underneath the house in a mess of like flood water, environmental hazards, and some big bloody gators. Now, obviously, being Aussie, I prefer salties to gators, but they've done really well in this movie. This movie is fun as hell. It's really tense at parts, even if it's not entirely like logical. Like the characters do make some silly decisions, but if you're just looking for a straight up good creature feature, it's very hard to go past Crawl. Stuff like The Shallows or Rogue, if you like that sort of stuff, or Deep Blue Sea, it's that vibe. It's so much fun. I really really like it. It's a great turn your brain off watch kind of movie, and the storm scenes are really good. There's heaps of flooding. It would have been so hard to film this movie, and they did an absolutely wonderful job. Currently, it's on Stan and Apple TV. Get around it. Crawl. It's underseen. I just love this movie. Now, for a break and something a little lighter, because let's be honest, it can be a bit doomy and gloomy waiting for a once in a 50-year hurricane to come pick up your trampoline and throw it into your neighbour's house. Um, a good remedy for this is the movie Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. This is definitely a comfort movie for me. This movie stars Rachel Sennett, Pete Davidson, and one of the most handsome men to ever grace the face of the earth, Lee Pace. It's about a extremely spoiled and rich group of 20-year-olds who decide to have a hurricane party at one of their parents' remote mansions. They plan to drink, play party games, and do drugs until basically the whole thing blows over, Shaun of the Dead style. Um, Unfortunately, during the party, one of the partygoers turns up dead, and it turns into one of the funniest murder whodunits ever. Ever, ever, ever. I just love this movie. You pretty much hate everyone in it, but you're supposed to. The reason they do that is so that you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. Like the tension's out of it. You are honestly just watching this thing go down, and it is so fucking funny. It has one of the greatest whodunit reveals of all time. Like, take that to the bank. It's so good. It's so funny. And I just love this movie. I really do. It's genuinely funny. Like, there are some genuinely laugh out loud lines in this movie. It's so goddamn good. It's such a good send up. I just love it. There's so many specific archetypes in this movie that it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's on Netflix. Go have a giggle while old Alfred tries to, and fails, to dampen your spirits. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is a banger. If you're like, all right, Jake, I want a seriously scary movie. You've just given me like really fun movies to watch. I get it. I get it. You're one of those guys. All right, I got one for you. I highly recommend the 2016 horror masterpiece, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This movie scared the hell out of me when I first watched it, and I watch a lot of horrors. Go check the channel. Um, this is probably the one I'm also going to watch tonight, and it involves a really big storm, which is great, fits the bill. It stars Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox as a father and son coroner team who are asked to find the cause of death for a Jane Doe who was mysteriously found at a crime scene. The problem is when they start doing the autopsy, they work out that this Jane Doe has flowing blood and no signs of rigor mortis. And honestly, the movie just gets creepier and creepier from there. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's got wonderful sound design. Everything in this movie is made to creep you out. Every little piece, every little ding, every song used, everything is made to creep you out. It's got a physically insane performance from Owen Catherine Kelly, who had to harness years and years of yoga to basically perform death-like stillness for days and days on set. If you like stuff like CSI with supernatural elements thrown in, you cannot go past this movie. It is a dead set banger, and it's currently available on Apple TV and Shudder. I just love this movie. It's one of my favorites. Go see it. For a really intense psychological horror movie involving an absolute belter of a storm, I recommend the movie You'll Never Find Me. It's a indie Australian horror movie that came out in 2024. It's about a young woman who has to shelter with like this elderly hermit in his caravan while a storm passes. The kicker with this movie is that both of the characters seem shady as all hell, and the entire film you're trying to work out which one of them is the bad guy. If you want to know more, I'll chuck a full link to my review of it in the description. The storm effects in this movie are wonderful. You really feel like the caravan's going to blow over at any second. And if you like horror movies or scenes with intense interrogation style conversation, so I'm talking the start of Barbarian, 2015's The Invitation, even probably like the bar scene in Inglourious Bastards. This is basically a whole film like that. The two characters are on screen pretty much the entire runtime, and both Jordan Cohen and Brandon Rock did an absolute wonderful job at being basically walking red flags. It's currently on Binge, Apple, and Shudder. I would love more people to see this movie. I think it's an absolute banger, and I do not think it's getting the love it deserves. It's so good. I highly, highly recommend You'll Never Find Me. How could I not finish off with this classic, especially given it's its 30-year anniversary this year? I'm of course talking about David Fincher's serial killer masterpiece, Seven. It is raining the entire time, this movie. Like, it's raining in absolute buckets. When I think of rain in horror movies, I think of this movie. Seven's about two detectives, a homicide veteran played by Morgan Freeman and a fiery young upstart played by Brad Pitt, who are put on the case of a serial killer who is using the 7 deadly sins as hashtag inspo. Get off fucking Pinterest. This movie is so dark and broody. The cinematography is phenomenal, and the writing is second to none in the serial killer genre. I honestly think this is as good as Silence of the Lambs. I love it that much. This, Silence of the Lambs, and Zodiac would make a really good little triangle. It has such an explosive ending. You could really just watch it for that alone. It is that good. If you're looking to have a bit of a wallow, and sometimes we all need that when stressful situations like these happen, you just want to wallow a bit. That's fine. This is a good movie to do that in. You can just chuck it on and sort of like think about how fucking awful people can be. But we get all the negative energy out watching these movies, and then we go into the world with a spring in our step. That's how we do this. That's how we do this as horror fans. So if you haven't seen Seven and you want like a stormy, it's also, while it is quite gory, lots of people think of it as more a psychological thriller than a horror, so it could be for people who aren't with partners or family that aren't fully into horror, but might like something to watch that is stormy tonight, this is Seven's a good pick for that, even though it's really fucked up. So know that going in. I warned you, it's fucked up. Um, all right, that's it, everyone. Please, please, please stay safe. Look after yourselves. Look after each other as well. I love you all. We will get through this. If you do end up using movies to escape like I do, let me know what you watched. It doesn't have to be horror related. It can be fucking Ponyo, whatever. Tell me what you've watched. I'm always interested to see what people's comfort movies are when shit gets stressful. Stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you next week for another review. Peace.